This Path of Exile 2 situation is crazy. Charlie, video time.
I definitely think melee skills are very useful. They're incredibly strong, generally speaking, relative to ranged.
Oh my, he's saying melee's better. From the mouth of the man himself. You know what? That's all I needed to hear. We almost don't need to hear the rest of his sentence. Hopefully he doesn't ruin it.
The intention really is that that is the content that only the, good players are able to achieve.
He's talking about me. Obviously, the best of the best, the cream of the crop. Cope? Nah, come on, Moxie. This is the part where the editor is going to like edit together some montage of me absolutely getting shit on over and over again. Oh my God. Get fucking shit on, boys. We got a once in a lifetime run with the balls, dude. Holy shit, we got her. Yo! The scream though. That's me when I wake up every morning and realize that it's still not the day that the game's out. Holy shit. Path of Exile 2 drama starting already. Extra Life review after 40 hours of gameplay. Strong believe that developers were joining the nose of great lists among Larian Studios and From Software. Campaign after 35 to 40 hours. Dark Souls of ARPGs. No difficulty options. No easy game. Maps are astronomically large. 1 hour from one side to another. Great sense of discovery. Feels like 3 games into one. Almost limitless combination of builds, clearly inspired by Diablo 2, potential to be the all-time king of the genre. Some bugs and crashes occurred. Strong belief that developers would join the annals, by the way, is how you say that, of greatness alongside Larian Studios and From Software. I struggle to believe it's going to take an hour to walk from side of the map to the other. They haven't seen my slow movement speed warrior yet. That's nice comment, but I trust Fextra Life's opinion as much as I trust my father, my magically revealing me the secrets of the universe. Curious to see that the early access is actually a thing, I guess. Path of Exile 2 gameplay impressions early access review. Is it the best ARPG of all time? In Path of Exile 2 video, I want to talk about my hands-on impressions with the game. I just wrapped up the main campaign today. Update video is now taken down. Another account posted a review, which has also been taken down. The plot thickens. Interesting. So people are actually getting early access. I'm only mad I can't play the game. What the hell, GGG? The only thing that would make sense is they're purposely making sure that the PoE community does not get early access, but reviewers do. Maybe you give it to like IGN, PC Gamer, like reviewers. I actually wouldn't care so much about that, to be honest. I don't think that's a big deal. Streamers should never get an early copy. I have a very simple stance on early access things, which is if they're going to offer it to everyone, I will always take it. I prefer that absolutely no one gets it. I actually think it's not only better for me personally if no one gets it, but it's actually more exciting too. It makes clips better and makes like gameplay blind better. I think playing blind is actually more fun, but it becomes an arms race, which is like if they offer every single PoE person like early access, then what you have to do is you're like, well, now I have to play it. They probably just send review codes out to reviewers, which I actually don't think is a huge deal to send it to like Gaming Journal. Like if PC Gamer has one, IGN has one, that's not really a big fucking deal. I don't care. That doesn't really like influence or take something away from the PoE community. It's not like they're going to show Pinnacle bosses and they're just doing reviews. Basically, Fextra Life looked like he had early access to the game. He showed cruel gameplay footage. He was posted on the video. It was then removed. Obviously, he was told to remove the video because people are speculating he broke NDA, or maybe he's not supposed to upload the gameplay footage or something. We don't actually know the real reason. A lot of people are dunking on it because they don't like Fextra Life due to the whole embedding fiasco. In my opinion, I don't think this is a very big deal. One, because I believe there was supposed to be an early access for a lot of people that was then canceled in order to protect the sanctity of blind running and surprises. They thought, you know what, never mind. More than likely, he slipped through the cracks. I'm speculating here. They said, yo, you got to actually remove that. NDA, the early access shit is actually not on. Please don't post this footage. And then he removed it. So obviously there was a statement made by GGG saying that they're not supposed to be posting it literally anyway. So if there is an early access, they obviously don't want people showing footage of it. I'm not going to watch the footage myself on stream because obviously GGG doesn't want it shown. So that's my stance on the matter. Not a big deal. Not really a huge drama. I think it's, back to business as usual, boys. Diablo 4 Cookbook. Everyone keeps talking about this. All right, here we go. Diablo 4 has done what everyone needed. We get a cookbook, boys. This isn't McDonald's. What is this? I could do without the ASMR of like a... I could do without that, honestly. So what is this? You just cook some fucking meat in a pot. Bro, this has 18,000 views. You think that people give a shit about a cooking recipe on the fucking Diablo channel? For the price of that cookbook, get yourself the PoE 2 early access instead. Yeah, Blizzard is cooking. I can see the videos people would make on this already. Blizzard is cooked. Blizzard is cooking. Blizzard gives up on the game and makes food instead. If I didn't have a cooking stream, I'm not making this shit. This looks terrible. Like, I'm gonna order McDonald's. That's real eating, dude. Give me some Wendy's. Give me some Taco Bell. I know how to eat. Nah, I'm good. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a new interview. Now, they do have a translator, so we'll skip through the translating part and try to get the answers for each one of these.
So when you look at PoE 2 right now, how close is it to your perfect image or optimistic image of, ideal image of PoE 2, if you could give it like a number, like a percentage?
It's pretty close now, I would say. Like, definitely.
Really? So he's confident.
If you don't count just the fact that we don't have all the content in terms of the gameplay and feel, I think we're definitely 90% there.
90% is pretty close.
The other thing as well is that the next best action RPG, in my opinion, is Path of Exile 1, and we need to make sure that we can compete with it.
Oh, shit. So he said two things right there. He said basically Path of Exile 2 is the best ARPG, is what he's saying. And then he's saying the second best ARPG is Path of Exile 1. He's saying that they have to compete with themselves, that their biggest competition is themselves, and the only person that can bury themselves is themselves. And he's actually not wrong. Holy Giga Chad Jonathan. Do you think a lot of D4 players would change to PoE 2 or go back or switch between mainly? Yeah, I think a lot of what kept Diablo 4 players from playing Path of Exile 1 is Path of Exile 1 does like a really bad job at kind of teaching the game from the beginning. Diablo 4 actually does like a pretty good job at getting you into the game early. Like, it's not really that hard to get going with Diablo 4. So people play Diablo 4, maybe it's their first ARPG, it's very heavily marketed, it's on console, yada, yada, yada. So it's much more of like a wide demographic of a game. Maybe they like the ARPG, think maybe let me try something else that I'm hearing about that's in the same genre. Then they play Path of Exile 1, and it's going from like, you know, your first weed gummy to crack immediately. I would assume that we're going to see a lot more people coming from Diablo 4 to Path of Exile 2 just by nature of how much more accessible it is and how it's actually targeted at those same platforms. Like PoE 1 on console is like not that good from what I hear. So if you're like a console Diablo player, for instance, and when you try console Path of Exile 2 and it's actually like developed for the console as well, you know, you're probably going to see a lot more of that shift, yeah. For sure.
In the future, is the plan to always have this kind of overlapping where you're carrying things over from PoE 1, or is it going to continue into completely separate development trees?
It's a good
we
question.
Won't necessarily do that, but I think there will be some amount of sharing. It's actually quite nice for us to be able to, you know, tell a story in two parts with PoE 1 and PoE 2. So a great example of that was the last League we released called Settlers of Kalgur. In Act 4 in PoE 2, we had this city called King's March, and then we decided that in PoE 1 we wanted to create a league that told the story of how that city came to be. So that's just something that's just a great opportunity when we've got these two games.
I actually didn't catch that connection. That's pretty cool. So you're sort of building the city for Path of Exile 2 in Path of Exile 1. That's actually super cool.
And I think that we'll probably continue doing some interesting things like that.
Obviously, Mirror of Kalandra was a very iconic item
Ooh,
in
the mirror.
currency in PoE 1. And he's wondering, first of all, does that item exist in PoE 2? And
Yes.
if not, oh, yes?
Yes.
Okay. 네, 일단은 존재한다고 하네요. So 10 years and he still hasn't seen the mirror drop. So do you think he'll have a chance in PoE 2?
Well, I've never found a legitimate mirror before either.
Oh, shit. Okay, how many of you guys have actually found mirrors? No bullshit. Like, how many of you have actually found a full mirror drop? I've never seen someone get one drop live. I've heard about 2 people getting one. Very rarely. I see maybe a couple people. 8 years, 0 mirrors. Holy moly, dude. That's got to be rarer than any RuneScape like pet drop.
I did have one drop one time when I was using cheats, but I didn't cheat to get it, but I just was killing the monsters with a cheat and I got one.
Oh,
so that's the only one I've ever seen.
Blizzard is worried. Expects when this dropped for Blizzard to offer some kind of free packs. No, they're not, dude. They're not remotely worried. You know why? Diablo 2's resurrected new reset of the ladder is on the same day. That's banger content. Pretty sure Path of Exile 2 is actually going to have an enormous chunk taken away from them because of that.
Now, you've mentioned in the past that the benefit of a season system is that you can play the season and then swap to a different game with a different season and go back and forth. But what happens when, you know, maybe the season update you had, whether it's something like in PoE 1, like the Kalandra League or the Necropolis League, where it just wasn't received as well? Would you have, or would you be open to this idea of mid-season updates to kind of amend what has already happened in that season?
Generally speaking, we don't like to do that, and that's because, so back in the early days of Path of Exile 1, we actually tried doing more frequent updates and these sorts of things, but we kind of found that they didn't really ultimately cause people to come back. So what we were much better off doing is just coming up with a larger update and trying a different approach and doing something completely new at that point.
I think this is smart no matter what game we're talking about. Across the board, I've seen some shit for this from Blizzard, PoE, like I've seen people constantly talk about only changing like game-breaking stuff, like economy ruining, game breaking, like type of stuff, I think is the right move. Because you really don't want to, like, in an ARPG, invest a ton of time into a character and then they just fundamentally change that character. I actually agree with him. I think this is a hard stance to take because you're going to get flamed on either side of it if you don't do mid-season, like, major changes. People will be upset because they think you should, but if you do them, they'll be upset because they think you shouldn't. So either way, you're going to have people that believe opposite side of this. I think I'm on the side which, like, I think I agree with him. I think Blizzard found this conclusion. GTG found this conclusion. It just seems like the right conclusion to come to.
That being said, I'm sure that when we first launch PoE 2, there will be many things that we get wrong that we will have to update very quickly. I'm sure the first couple of weeks there'll be many small updates.
I cannot wait to see the Reddit threads whining about how the game is an unbalanced, bug-filled, laggy mess. Or people that get to the end game with the maps and they start bricking their atlas over and over and having to reset it and they start getting salty. Can't wait.
In PoE 1, one of the troubles they had was that you couldn't try on the cosmetics before you purchased it. So is that included in PoE 2? And if not, are there any plans?
So actually, we do have a completely new store in Path of Exile 2. And that store does let you see the items on your character before you buy them. And it also allows you to see like a close-up of your character and this kind of thing as well.
So you can actually do like a preview, like you can dress up your dude to tell if you want to buy it or not. They have a try on. It's actually nice because there's been a bunch of times where I bought something like as a gamble, hoping it works to like try, mostly just to cover the Templar's long fucking neck, let's be honest. And then it didn't do the job anyway because the neck's like a monstrosity and the hitbox is weird. This would have actually saved me many a coin.
The question is about the maps and bosses only having one try, and otherwise even the pinnacle bosses you'd have to kind of build up again to revisit them. And this might be a bit too daunting for newer players or kind of middle-level players where if I die I have to kind of go through the entire process again to try to challenge this boss again in the end game. So are there any plans to try to mitigate that in the future?
So I think if you're talking about the actual pinnacle bosses, the intention really is that is the content that only the very good players are able to achieve.
He's talking about me, obviously, and this is the part where the editor is going to like edit together some montage of me absolutely getting shit on over and over again. But he's talking about me, the pinnacle of the ARPG players, the best of the best, the cream of the crop. I will be one of the first warrior titans in Alaska wearing a hoodie that's streaming, that's a ginger, to defeat the pinnacle boss. Okay, that's going to be a record no one can take from me.
So if you're talking about the early end game, losing a map is not really a big deal. Like, you get plenty of them. It's absolutely fine. It only really starts to matter as you get towards that pinnacle content where it requires quite a lot to be able to challenge that stuff. So effectively, yeah, I mean, we kind of want it that way, and I believe that it will mean that achieving victory against the pinnacle bosses will be a much more valuable achievement than it was in Path of Exile 1.
Okay, hold on. That's actually kind of a big statement, to be honest. Defeating the pinnacle boss in PoE 2 is going to be a more valuable, reputable type of achievement than in Path of Exile 1. Uber bosses in Path of Exile 1, I think, are actually difficult. I mean, you could argue if you have a good build and you one-shot them, not as much, okay? But for most people, beating all the Uber bosses, especially if we start talking about like the fear than the other ones too. Yeah, I mean, those can be kind of hard. SSF especially. Yeah, that's a good point, especially SSF. And plus you can only die once this time. If they're saying pinnacle bosses are literally even harder than PoE 1 bosses, like, they did not make this baby's first ARPG. This is going to be an actual challenge.
This is a question about the combat. For instance, something like a pure melee build or something like that, or maybe some elements being a little bit too strong, where physical damage was really only used to destruct things, right, and to fragment things when they're frozen or something like that. So, what has been designed in PoE 2 to kind of balance out melee and different elements and all those types of builds?
I mean, I guess it's a little bit hard to answer that fully, but ultimately,
we made melee for gigachads.
It's not necessarily important that every element is balanced against each other. The key thing is that we're giving you lots of different different tools to solve different problems. I think it's a mistake if you're a player to be like, okay, I'm a fire sorceress, I'm only going to go fire, right? I mean, you can do that, but I think you're going to have a worse time than if you try to combo things between different elements.
So what about specifically when it comes to melee? Like how useful are melee skills
Aha!
outside
I
of-
love this guy. He's really hammering him about the melee. He's asking for more melee conversation. This is my man right here, talking about melee.
of just being supplemental to
Oh,
others?
I mean, I definitely think melee skills are very useful. They're incredibly strong, generally speaking, relative to ranged. Like that you...
Oh my, he's saying melee's better. From the mouth of the man himself, he's saying melee is incredibly strong versus range. He's basically saying only the smart players are going to be playing melee because it's strong versus the... You know what? That's all I needed to hear. We almost don't need to hear the rest of his sentence. Hopefully he doesn't ruin it.
You definitely get the payoff for being in melee range.
Okay, good.
일단 그
Got
게임
better.
디자인 측면에서는
Got better.
다
Loving
맞점이
this
있다.
interview.
A lot of bosses are actually much easier to fight in melee than they are in ranged.
Let's
because
go!
the bosses choose to use a different... And also,
Dude, it's just getting better. It's getting better. He's out here just sending one after another of confirmation that we picked the right thing. He's basically saying if you're playing range, you're stupid. Only the right decision is melee. This is what I wanted to hear from this interview.
So, for example, with the boss I was just fighting, which I did admittedly die to, it's actually much easier if you stay very close to the boss because you can dodge around the boss very easily when you're very close, but when you're far away, it's actually much harder to dodge those abilities. So melee is actually quite an advantage.
Melee login.
All right, so we'll see if you can answer this one. But they're wondering,
Oh, he's gonna ask a juicy one.
as you operate Path of Exile, have you guys ever done these kind of like phantom nerfs that just weren't public, whether it's about drop rates or tweaking values without telling people?
Secret nerfs.
I will say not really. There might be a few cases where the players would argue that there was a change that wasn't noted, but generally speaking, we do try to be transparent. But I will be honest and say there might have been a couple of cases where there are a few minor tweaks without mentioning it to anyone. But generally speaking, we try to make sure we tell everyone about these things.
So when it comes to skills that are just underused or maybe forgotten, what are your plans? What's the philosophy, and how do you patch those? How do you update them? How often?
Well, I mean, so every time we do a patch for Path of Exile 1 as well as, and what we will do in PoE 2, is we always look at the various data websites that exist that sort of show you like what things are popular and what things aren't. And we're always
like
focusing...
PoE Ninja. Every time you go to PoE Ninja, it says that the most popular build is always like fucking Bone Shatter of Complex Trauma or something. Like you go to these websites and be like 97.8% of people playing your class are playing this one move. So then when you go looking like, oh, well, how many people decided that my move was the way to go? And you look up your move and it's like 0.0001% and they're all dead or something.
It's much better to buff the weak things than it is to nerf the powerful things. People obviously feel a lot better about that. But I will say, though, that it's okay for there to be, in PoE 2, for there to be some skills that don't see a huge amount of use. Some things exist to be combo pieces that maybe they have not found the rest of the combo yet. Interesting things for people to discover later.
I do like that this interview basically told us that melee is for the Giga Chads only. He was it sounded like Jonathan was saying you need to play melee, to be honest. He's saying you play melee, you'll be a handsome, strong, good player. Obviously, I'm exaggerating, but he did say it sounded like he thought melee was going to be pretty good. Have you tried Ranger? It looks a little underwhelming. I don't think Ranger will be underwhelming. I think it's that it's not like flashy. So like the reason it's the least picked one is it's also the class that is like the least new / changes. I think Warrior is also going to be one of the least picked. Like Ranger and Warrior, people aren't going to play those as much. Open World Games is a new one. Play Path of Exile 2 before release, and yes, it's good. Watch this be the same thing as the Fextro. Let's see.
Oh boy, here we go. So yes, I got the chance to go hands-on with Path of Exile 2 Grinding Gears.
Lots of new
That
gameplay. Okay.
Flew me out to LA, and let me tell you what.
Okay, so it's confirmed from the LA trip. There we go. This is good footage. He will not have to remove this one like the other one.
I had an absolute blast with this game, and I have no regrets about picking the Mercenary as my go-to class. I spent a lot of time with
The grenades still just look disgusting. Every time I see it, it's like the shotgun looks kind of weak. The machine gun looks like the DPS is low, but then they use the grenades and it does like 5x the times the damage of anything else we've seen. Especially that cluster one that just like keeps exploding. Looks insane.
But I did also want to talk about what's going on with my Mercenary. As you can see, tons of explosions. I have a grenade setup here that you will be very envious of. So First of all, you can start out with 1 grenade, but I have a
Dude, that looks
modifier on
insane.
this.
One thing that could be kind of rough is like these mobs are kind of fast on him here. So like if you're shooting grenades and they like bounce and take a moment to blow up and you're having to like run from the mobs, the explosions could happen like behind you because the mobs are moving like kind of fast. That part could be a little bit brutal. But like honestly, the damage doesn't look that bad. Do you think people are building for grenades in these events because they're cooler and new? I think they're building in grenades because it's AoE. So you have 2 options on Mercenary. You can sit there and you can shoot with your, or actually 3 options. You can shoot with your machine gun in like a direct line and basically hit one guy a bunch of times for 0 damage. Or you can throw grenades, which do cluster damage in a giant AoE that does a bajillion damage. So it's like, I think people are just grenading because grenading is good. This is early gameplay. This is Act 1. I don't like this shotgun. Like the having to like pump shotgun to me feels terrible. I don't like shotgun in any game. Like, I'm talking first-person shooters, nothing. I just don't like shotguns because you got to, like, reload constantly. I'll show you some of my footage now. What we can do here is let's pick through some of the bosses, and I'll answer some questions. So this is my warrior playthrough. Act 2, you want to start Act 2? We can start Act 2. How about I show you guys the final boss of Act 1 first, then we'll go Act 2, yeah? You guys probably seen it before, but at least it's a good fight. Okay, so this is the finale of the Act 1 boss here. And obviously you're sort of chasing that beast thing that they had in the cage from the Act 1 cinematic, if you remember that cinematic. That's the beast that we're chasing there. And there's the guy with his sword that pinned the hood one to the tree. He's got the rune sword. He's got like a code ability that will freeze you. He's got multiple code abilities, actually. He has a phase 1 and a phase 2. He's also got AoEs that'll come down. So there's a swipe. You got to kind of avoid the swipe as well. And he snipes you. That's got like a big triple hit. He can do a decent amount of damage. I don't think he's too hard of a boss. Most people get him in a few tries, I think. His HP is not too crazy. By this point, I had okay damage. I don't think I had crazy damage or anything like that, but my damage was okay. I'll turn down the audio just a little bit here. So you mostly just gotta worry about being froze. He's got a couple combos. He doesn't do like absolutely insane damage. If you have some armor, you'll be fine. Some code res, you'll be fine. That big slam's like the one you got kind of worry about. You can see there I did like 70-80% of my HP, so it's a pretty good amount of damage there. If you're using maces like I am, you can knock him pretty easily. And I'm kind of doing the combo of doing the earth shatter there, so I put these spikes, but then if I war cry, it explode the spikes also. The totems are super nice because it kind of gives something for him to attack, you know? It's kind of like a cat toy you dangle in front of your cat. That's sort of what the totems are for me. And then, yeah, he turns into like this corrupted beast wolf thing. And this part's kind of interesting because there's a moment here where he's going to create some fog. Also, he has AoE from above. Those hitboxes are a little bit bigger than they look. So you notice I was outside of the actual line, but the ground splash has got a pretty good size. So he's going to create some fog here. You can go into the fog, and he's going to try to dash out of the fog and attack you. There's going to be wolves that come at you, too. In order to be able to dodge it, you got to wait for the timing of the attack, which is directly after he's done shit-talking. So he'll shit-talk you, and then after that line is when he charges. You got to kind of like audio pay attention. There's sort of an audio cue that will help you out a little bit. You notice I started realizing this about halfway through. The totems are actually super nice to help kind of distract the minions, so you're kind of getting flooded with minions, and there isn't phasing the game, so they will like block you. You got to kind of keep moving because you're waiting for him to stop charging, right? Then he's got the area attack there, which is pretty much a time where you can kind of get some attacks in as long as you dodge most of them here. He's got a meteor slam, which is actually kind of hard to dodge. Reminds me of Dark Souls, or I should say Elden Rings, you know, rather than the kind of meteor slam attack there. Does a good amount of damage. It seems to be the second most damage after the triple hit he does. The freezing breath will KO you for sure if you just face tank it, because it's multiple hits. And you have the laser beams again. You just kind of dodge. I'm failing to dodge most of these. And then that's the meteor slam. So when you see him start to disappear up top, that's when he's going to do a meteor slam. And then this is where he's got shit that he puts, kind of like Frostmourne. He puts a sword into the ground. You got frost going everywhere. You gotta avoid the little ground pieces there. Not too bad. His HP isn't too crazy, so... And his basic attacks are pretty easy to dodge. So again, this is the same concept as the Frost one, only this time like some bloodline or something. I really wasn't sure 100%. Oh, Corrupting Blood is what it does. And you can see there, I die to getting hit too many times, plus the Corrupting Blood. So, attempt number 2. I think most people get this boss down in probably 2, 3, 4 attempts at the absolute most. I don't really think the boss is too bad. Are you stunning when he goes on your back? Yeah, so you can see there's a build-up stagger bar, And when that stagger bar gets full, that's going to stun the boss. That counts as a heavy stun, I believe. Or at least we're assuming so. But that's the heavy stun. Like right there's an example. So he's heavy stunned at the moment. And if you're playing Titan, for instance, that would be when you're getting your 40% more damage. Or if you take the 20% more stun to heavy stun, that would be where you're getting that bonus. So yeah, I mean, you can see that I'm building up the stagger bar. However, to answer the question about stagger, once you've knocked them once, the next knock takes a little bit more stagger, and then after a certain amount of time, I'm not really sure how much time it is, then the stagger sort of resets, and you can start staggering just as easy as you could the first time, but there's the second stagger. So the second boss fight, a lot easier. Just make sure to stagger him, get the combo as well. You can see he's transforming, so he has iframes while he's transforming, sort of boss phase 2 here. Try and put the spikes up so I can get that burst damage, and then you get the knock right away. That's because I'm using, again, I'm stacking those earth shatters and crying, so when he's sort of doing his iframes, there's delay, you can kind of build up those columns there, and you can war cry to explode them. And I'll put the totems up just to try to, like, distract the minions a little bit and give me a little something to hide behind. That's pretty much the only reason I have them there. The bone shatter, so the reason I can kind of hit an AoE there with the one hit is if you have these little yellow circles over their head, that means bone shatter's ready to proc, and when you hit it, it kind of explodes around them too, so it's sort of like an AoE. You can also proc those other bone shatters. So there he goes, he's out of the immunity phase. And so at this point, I'm just trying to get the spikes up from a distance so that I can get closer and war cry. And you get a little bit of damage from that. And there's another knock. And the knock lasts like a good amount of time. You can definitely get like at least a few good hits. That pretty much just tanked that one, trying to get more spikes up. Some of the spikes missed there. And then that move, I feel like the ice move is, it's a little bit of a bait. You feel like you're away from it, but it's got a little bit larger hitbox, and it looks, the freeze is annoying because he can combo you like that, but again, he doesn't do like crazy damage, so it's really not too bad unless you get hit with like a whole bunch of moves at once. Stacking the spikes to explode him and then trying to knock him again, and there we go. Job done. Boss is down. Act 1 final boss. And I got a yellow shield and a couple blues and some coins. As I kind of pick through Act 2 here. You're not off till 5 on Friday, but not too worried because hopefully servers will be in a good spot by then. I legitimately think the servers are going to struggle. In multiple interviews now, we've seen Jonathan say that he's worried about the servers, or he's working on the servers. Also, it does seem like they are getting more attention than they originally expected. So because of that, I do believe it's reasonable to expect there to be server issues on the launch of the game. I legitimately think no matter what they do, there's going to be server issues. I think there's going to be an absolute load of people. Also, server issues aren't something that's like unique only to Diablo. Like Last Epoch has, Diablo has them. Remember Waitfinder. Pretty much any game that is like a live service game that has a major launch or announcement has some kind of server related issues on launch. I think that's pretty normal. I wouldn't be too concerned about it if we do see it. It's not like, oh my god, the game's ruined, why didn't they plan for this? Like, I think that that's just something that typically happens with a large influx of players at the same time. Like, it stresses out the servers. Every hype multiplayer game has server issues, yeah, basically. And like Jonathan said in the interview we did with him, he's like, I can't just like call up Amazon and say, hey, I need 1,000 new servers. Like, he's kind of saying like it's more complicated than that, boys. The one thing, it's kind of hard to tell unless the modifiers are something obvious. It is kind of harder to tell when a mob is a blue mob. It's not like overwhelmingly highlighted in blue or anything like that. So can you tell that those are magic mobs right there? It's kind of hard to tell. They're not as immediately obvious, which means that when you're playing hardcore, it's going to be a little scary because maybe you don't notice. Like that, it's a blue mob with extra crits. Maybe you don't notice that. Like, I feel like magic mobs, aren't they blue? No, like you have to like actually hover over their life. The last pack of mobs I just fought were magic. Okay, wait for it. There's a pack of mobs here that end up being blue. That's like impossible to tell. I'm like, oh, there's just a pack of mobs. And it's like, oh shit, those have extra crits. So this is, in my opinion, the most underwhelming boss in the campaign. Like, it has a flamethrower that just kind of like turns. And it kind of got shit on. Like, I was struggling with normal mobs a little bit, but then I fight this guy, and he kind of just straight up gets dumpster. Maybe I'm, like, playing, warriors, like, strong against it or something. But, like, I'm doing a percentage of fire damage. It's a fire boss. Of course, I stack those, and he's not on him. But there you go. Fire just kind of does, like, no damage. It's a little bit of a Tomb Lord. Hitboxes look a bit scuffed. I don't think it's the hitboxes, just, like, the boss felt, like, kind of underwhelming. I just, like, killed it. The scream, though. That's me when I wake up every morning and realize that it's still not the day that the game's out. Looks dope and screams fine by you. Yeah, I mean, visually it's good. I don't know, I feel like the boss was like a little underwhelming. So this is Balba the Trader, which is actually, okay, so this boss is interesting because this is the boss that's going to drop you the coins so you can do your ascension. So at this point in the game, when I kill this boss, I don't get the thing that lets me ascend because ascension was not allowed in the early access I was testing in LA. For that reason, I was kind of confused about the boss. It was like kind of a cool boss and all that. It seemed kind of random to be up here. But this is where you're going to get your ascension. It has some pretty cool mechanics. It's got like daggers it throws at you. It has poison that comes out of the middle that if you don't find the boss, like it would just continue to create poison until you die. I think I died to this boss one time because I'm still like learning the mechanics of this fight. You can see there's like the AoE daggers and then they shoot up. Pretty cool boss. Has some ads that spawn. The teleport is awesome because it like teleports around, throws daggers in the air that are going to go and attack you. This is where the poison comes out of the middle. And you've got to actually find where he was. I thought that thing marked where he was, so I was like spamming those hammers and then... Oh, he actually is there. I actually thought the mark on the ground doesn't show where he was. It's just like a damage thing he leaves. He's on the left there. I didn't see him on the left. Yeah, see? He left that thing. There he is again, but he's on the left also. Ah, so that's a mob. Okay, it's a mob. Got baited by the mob. Pretty cool boss. Very fast. I think this boss is decent with melee. Kind of in your face, but that's like fine because I'm trying to slap him in the face. So there he is. I gotta find him again. There he is. Yep. So he is different than the mark. And now shatter him. He actually does some damage too. Like if you hold still, he'll stack those daggers on top of yourself, and then he'll hit you multiple times. I think visually, it's one of the better bosses. I kind of like the whole gold theme they have going on, especially because it gives you like a gold coin. Kind of matches the vibe a little bit. Especially now that I know this is the boss for Sanctum. Like I didn't realize that before. It makes more sense now. I kind of thought it was just a random boss. It was like, this is a really well-designed like random boss, but it's actually like a more important boss. Okay, so now he does the poison in the middle. I gotta find him, or else the poison floods the arena. There he is. Give him the old slap. And I think I die with him 1 HP right here. Yep. I was literally about to hit him with it, and then I die the 1 HP. Have you not dropped uniques in your playtime? No, I have tested the game 3 times, and I have never gotten a unique drop. I've seen people get unique drops during the playtest, but I've personally never received a unique drop. I know that they're, like, decently common. We saw in that one Subtractum video that he ended up getting a unique item drop on, like, Devourer, like the first worm boss there. Definitely is kind of a scary boss. I don't think it's too bad. Definitely doable. I think most people get it in 2 tries, probably. Maybe 3 at the most. I don't think it's too bad. All right, boys. Tomorrow, 12 p.m. PST, aka 3 p.m. EST. I will give out another key in the morning when we start out the stream. So I'll do it right at the start of the stream for the people that are early. We're almost there, boys. We're almost there.